Major.
Here we are once again talking about whatever the hell we happen to be talking about. It's my live monthly Patreon hangout. I'm joined in the room here, the virtual room, by some of my wonderful Patreon patrons. As always, I'm not joined by anybody in the room here except the cat box. That's my only company. Everybody else is elsewhere in the apartment. But
There's a broom.
the broom, yeah, the broom. There's a vacuum which you can't see, which is just outside of the frame. But yeah.
Hi,
So
broom and
anyway,
vacuum.
Yay, broom!
Just thankful we don't have smell-o-vision.
and a beautiful fan, you know.
Carl Stalling says it'll never work.
Yeah.
You remember that one, Steve, from the old the Bugs Bunny cartoon?
Oh yeah, smell-o-vision, yeah.
Smell-o-vision replaces television. Carl Stalling says it'll never work.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, hey, happy All Saints Day, everybody. I know as the proprietor of an atheist YouTube channel and in a group of all my supporters here, I'm sure we all celebrate All Saints Day, right? It's a big deal for us. So happy All Saints Day.
Yeah.
I only celebrate some Saints Day.
I'm celebrating No Shave November.
Hey, there you go.
I'm not celebrating it, Steve.
I'm celebrating it the way I always do, by not shaving.
Ever.
I do no shave life. All you Movember posers. I do no shave life.
I've tried it a couple of times. I'll tell you what, the problem with wearing a beard is if you ever have to suit up and go into a clean room, because I mean, literally all you see is this, and the beard just crowds up inside the balaclava, and it's no fun.
Yeah, you know, I did when I was shooting that the Halloween episode of the Steve and Stuffy series that I put up this week. I wore for the parts in it where I'm invisible, I was wearing a green screen suit.
Right.
And I couldn't tell while I had it on, but Ashley told me that you could see my beard poking through the mask.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
If my camera were high def enough, I guess maybe you could have seen like a very thin disembodied beard floating around.
Yeah, well, if enough of it poked through and the chroma key was fine enough to be able to resolve that.
Yeah.
But
Would have been a good effect.
Yeah, I can just make out his beard. I think he's still here.
It's interesting to watch what the king and the green screening isn't able to catch when you're in a bodysuit. Like it just sort of occasionally flashes you a border of you.
Yeah, and I mean that was a little annoying. There were actually when I was editing that video, there were more shots that I had shot that I wanted to use that I just couldn't use because it's my first time working with a not only a green screen but a green screen suit, and there were a couple of them that just weren't sufficiently lit so that it wouldn't key out cleanly enough, and you know it was just, and I know better for next time. Just for anybody who ever works with a green screen, the number one tip that you can give is to light the shit out of anything green. Light the shit out of anything green. Otherwise, you run into troubles. But yeah, it was. I mean, sometimes that little border is kind of fun, you know, if you can just sort of see, oh look, there's something there. But other times you just want to, like when in the scenes where, because I didn't really want that so much for the Steve and Stuffy video, because all the scenes where I'm invisible, I also have clothes on, so you don't need to see like a border. You just need to see like, you know, the hat or the underwear or the T-shirt floating around. That's the effect.
You ever seen those pictures of like news reporters who happen to wear like a green dress or a green suit on the weather, and then they blend in, and it kind of makes you wonder. I wonder why like the tech people didn't say, "Hey, buddy, you're in green and you're gonna blend in." Maybe they just let it happen just for shits, you know? I don't know.
He walked in wearing green. The hell with him.
Yeah. Watch this, guys.
That in pre-production. I worked for a film and video production facility back in the mid-'70s, and it's one of the reasons I made that comment about, you know, be glad you're working in digital and not NTSC, Steve, because, I mean, if you think you had to light the crap out of that, I mean, God, did we have about like 50, maybe 75 kilowatts of lights just in a 40 by 45 studio, and
yeah, it's
was
really
nuts.
amazing.
And any scene that was in 10 forward in the Next Generation, there was always stars going through the shadows.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible. Like just on my very low budget production setup that I shoot all the 5 Super Things videos in front of a green screen, and it's twice as much lighting as just an ordinary video. I mean, because you're not just lighting yourself, you also have to make sure that that green background lights up like a Christmas tree so that you can take all of it out.
You need a certain
plus, you're in like a darker room, aren't you? In the most of those videos.
Yeah. Well, see, when I'm shooting stuff without the green screen, I use a 3-point lighting, so there's 2 in front and 1 behind me.
Okay.
But with the green screen, there's that same 3-point lighting to light me, and then there's also there's 2 more lights behind me just on the green screen, so that it pops out. So again, like if the green screen isn't brightly lit and evenly lit, then that's when you run into bleeding and little artifacts in the background, like, hey, what's that weird haze behind him? It's because the green screen didn't key out all the way.
You can just tell your viewers it's Predator, making like
exactly
making a cameo in your video.
Predator likes to hang out sometimes. He doesn't really mess with me, but he
no,
just likes to
I didn't fuck up. It's Predator. It's Predator, guys.
Exactly. That's that's something that low budget filmmakers all learn to do. Is oh no, that wasn't a mistake. We meant to do that.
It's a feature.
It's not a bug. It's a feature. Exactly.
So, Steve, does it ever get hot with all those lights?
No, actually, you know what? It used to, because I used to use incandescent lights, and I used to use 500-watt incandescent lights that were like ovens. I mean, they're probably the kind of light bulbs they use like in easy bake ovens. You know what I mean?
And here's another. You had to ask. Oh God!
Exactly.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah. You could bake cookies with these light bulbs, but now I use, for the last 2 or 3 years actually, I've used compact fluorescents. Let me grab one and show you what they look like. I've got them right over here. Yeah. I use these compact fluorescent bulbs that are almost as bright, but they don't get nearly as hot, and also they last forever. I use these.
Wow.
And they they're the CFL equivalent of a 500-watt incandescent bulb, but they're not quite that bright, but they're still pretty damn bright, but they're cool. I mean, you can touch them almost as soon as you turn them off. They don't give off nearly as much heat. They're not as good as like an LED setup, but that's probably what part of my production upgrade is going to be whenever I can afford it, whenever the either the ad revenue or the Patreon revenue gets high enough. That's one of the things I'm going to invest in, is a good LED lighting setup.
LED does kick quite a lot of ass.
Yeah, I would. Most of the lights I've got in here, we started out with CFLs, but I've got the one fixture down in the kitchen which is all LED. And I mean, I started out with 60-watt equivalents. I don't know exactly what they draw, but I immediately wished I'd gone down to 40 because, number one, they're so bright, and number two, no heat whatsoever. I mean, they're completely safe. And the other neat thing is the coating on them is such that I haven't tried dropping one, but I'm fairly certain if you were to drop it, it wouldn't be a worry because they're completely coated, and they, And on top of that, I completely lost my train of thought. Never mind.
You love that?
Oh, it happens all the time.
I love when that happens. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I just gaped.
Okay, gape. But yeah, for anybody here or anybody watching who's like, has questions about it, how to start a YouTube channel or something, I always tell people lighting is the most important thing. If you are going to be on camera yourself, lighting is the most important thing, and that's it's a good tip for if you're starting out, or if you don't have a lot of money to invest in a really high-end professional lighting rig. Those bright CFL bulbs are a really good option, and not only are they cool and low wattage, but they last forever. I've been using them for I think almost 3 years now. I haven't had to replace one yet, except for when I broke one.
Well, that's problematic. Number one, because there's a little bit of mercury in there.
Yeah, you don't want to break them.
They've decreased it quite a lot, though.
At the risk of sounding like I'm hawking something, because Cree, which makes LEDs, used to be a customer of mine back when over in Research Triangle in North Carolina. Nice little outfit there.
Oh, good old Raleigh.
North Carolina is a really nice state.
And Research Triangle is just beautiful. It's wooded. It's very sylvan. It's not Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is just, it's the next best thing to sterile.
No, it's urban sprawl. Refined is the wrong word for urban sprawl. It's more the opposite of refined, but it's just urban sprawl.
That's not very far off at all.
The opposite of refined urban sprawl. I like that.
I used to live in San Jose. It's just city everywhere.
I don't mind urban sprawls as long as they keep the air quality all right. They don't have factories everywhere. You know, as long as it's nice looking urban sprawl. Because I grew up in the burbs, but I've always been more inclined towards the city. I just kind of like it a lot. I don't know.
Actually, to your point there. Actually, I misspoke. It's not city everywhere. It's strip malls everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, fuck that then.
Blight. Soon to be vacant strip malls. That's like that's the condition that things are in the Hagerstown, Washington County area. It's been like that for probably 30 years, as long as I can remember. Is a new strip mall opens, it does well for 10 or 15 years, it closes, it's abandoned, it's completely vacant, and 3 miles down the road, completely new strip mall opens.
We had exactly the same thing happen here. We've got a Walmart maybe 3 miles from where I am right now, and it used to be literally directly across the street from a Target. The Target went out of business. The entire strip mall, which is like a dozen or maybe 18 stores, all of them belly up. Yeah. The place is completely deserted, and they recently raised the Target, but nothing else is going on with it. And it's good property at a major intersection. Somebody explain this to me, please.
Yeah, there's an area in Hagerstown that used to be like the town hasn't gotten any smaller. It's still an incredibly busy area, but there's this little shopping center right sort of on the edge of the city that used to be a major place. Used to have a movie theater and all kinds of stores that people, and now it's just almost completely dead. And right across the street from it is this huge new shopping center, with like a super big grocery store and a Lowe's and a Starbucks, and and it's like, Jesus Christ, it's right across the street from the dead place. And it makes me wonder if we're using our our land as efficiently as we might be.
It makes me wonder, ridiculous. Does it really cost that much more to renovate something versus build from scratch?
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point.
No, we asked that question around here in Montgomery. We have what's called the wildfire syndrome that burns outwards. And what you find out is that the cities provide a tax break for new construction. They don't provide it for old construction.
Yeah.
Well, that explains a lot right just there by itself.
Yeah. You have to pay for tearing it down, and there's a whole bunch of little hidden things that make it more expensive that you would never expect.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why around here it's not as bad as it used to be, because there have been in the last few years some old abandoned properties that have either been razed or have been taken over and renovated and made into new things, but there are still there are multiple old abandoned empty storefronts, like big box stores that are just sitting there.
You could use them for a horror short if you wanted to.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, you just have someone dress up in a hockey mask.
Or somebody should at least rent it for a month around Halloween and you make a haunted house or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's what happens. We've got a number of these places in Bainbridge, not very far from here. Was a flower place and like a hobby place. I think it was a Hobby Lobby, as a matter of fact. And both, these places are all shut down. But come Halloween, come Christmas, it's Christmas town and Halloween spirit and all this other happy stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, come November the 1st or December the 26th, gone.
Exactly.
And actually, back in Kansas City, there's there's this warehouse district called West Bottoms. Back in the day when it was still, when trains still mattered, it was like really popular, and now it's just a bunch of abandoned warehouses, and it looks kind of creepy, but nothing really happens down there. But every Halloween, they turn one of the warehouses, kind of the same thing you said, Lauren. They turn it into this thing called the Edge of Hell, and it's just the most popular thing ever. Like for people all around the city, they always talk about, oh man, I'm gonna go to this haunted house, Edge of Hell. I'm gonna have so much fun. And I'm just like, oh, okay, bye bye, have fun. Because I don't do haunted houses. Like I would just rather watch a scary movie, a well-made scary movie.
Yeah.
The closest I get to a scary movie is Aliens. I've always liked Aliens. I always thought it was wonderfully done. Let's see, that was it wasn't Scott. It was
James Cameron.
Cameron, yes.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Totally on his game to the point where he actually disturbed Roger Ebert when he did the review of that. And I mean, Alien was absolutely good. I'm embarrassed to say I don't have it in my collection, at least not in DVD. I think I have it in a Laserdisc, believe it or not.
I have them both, plus for me.
But I don't have Alien 3, which I thought was an absolute travesty, and I don't have Alien What's-a-Scratch, which was the last one. Resurrection, was it?
Don't bother.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it. The only thing that's worth seeing is Sigourney Weaver nailing that over the back shot in one take.
No, it's also good for eye candy with the technology and stuff. And whimsy.
Oh yeah, I actually always preferred I like Alien the best. I mean, Aliens is a good movie, but I think Bill Paxton's character kind of weighs it down a little bit because he's always going, oh man, what are we gonna do, man? What are we gonna do? He's like
Bill Paxton and everything.
He's like that friend who's always like, oh man, we're so dead, we're in such trouble. It's like
the thing that amazes me about Paxton is they finally harnessed him on Edge of Tomorrow because he got to play a stereotype. He was a total stereotype in that, and he was perfect.
I will say this about Bill Paxton, because he's someone who I like. When in my the podcast I co-host with Jason Harding, Late Seating, I occasionally will mention Bill Paxton as sort of like my number one favorite / least favorite bad actor.
The actor you love to hate.
Because I think he spoils everything he's ever been in. But yeah, I think the older he's gotten, the better he's gotten. When he was he wound up being like pretty much the main villain at the end of the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I thought he was actually pretty good in that. I mean, I think
he wasn't in the Red Stuff, was he?
No, he was not.
I think I'm just getting confused because of
he was in Apollo 13.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was in the Terminator.
13.
He actually wasn't too bad in Apollo 13.
And the Terminator gets killed, so you can watch him then.
Yeah. Fuck you, asshole!
He was also there's that one moment he's in True Lies, and there's that moment in True Lies when Schwarzenegger fantasizes about breaking his face. That I could just watch like on repeat over and over again when Schwarzenegger he's having like a fantasy moment where he just reaches over and just cracks him in the face and like twists his head around and breaks his nose and like.
I have to believe the True Lies was a lot of fun to make. I mean,
it had to have been. It had to have been
difficult. But I mean, being on set had to be just play day every day. When you were doing something technically difficult. Like riding onto a Harrier and hanging on for dear life.
Steve, it's kind of funny because I recently got around to listening to your late seating review of Titanic.
Oh yeah.
First of all, that was hilarious because I just died. Like the commentary you guys made was freaking hysterical. Even though I kind of liked the movie a little bit, but then I popped in the movie because I have it, and then I kind of listened to Bill Paxton, are you ready to go back to Titanic? Just like over and over again. Because I'm like, oh, this is kind of funny.
Oh man. I just don't. He's the same in every movie. Like he sounds like super earnest, but at the same time, like not really convincing. You know?
Yeah. Can I say Jason sounds like he's gonna have a heart attack on every single one of those reviews. Every single one. He's like, Steve, if I have to hear one more of these things, I'm gonna kill him.
But especially in the Titanic one, though, he was like, oh, and it grossed $2.8 million.
And you know, Titanic. I'm pretty sure Titanic was his idea. Like, I'm pretty sure he suggested us that we do that movie because the one we did the most recent one we did, Dracula, that was my idea, and I think a few of the other ones that we've done that he's like really hated was my idea, but some of the ones where he really is like, you know, losing it during our summary, it's movies that he said we should do. So
you guys just did Last Starfighter, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a good one because I really like that movie.
So did I. I remember.
I always liked that one too.
It's the battle cry, victory or death. Is that was it a southern thing?
I don't know if that was a southern. It probably. Toward the end, probably.
Sorry, Lauren, didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
I
just wanted to say, you know, having seen that in a theater back in the mid '80s, and you know, seeing the credits again, and go, "Whoa, Cray XMP! Gee whiz, somebody's getting serious, aren't they?"
Yeah.
I was just fascinated with the idea of that, and then 10 years later comes a Video Toaster and Babylon 5, and Straczynski's just taking it that one step further, and now we're getting back to practical effects. Ye gods!
Yeah, it's amazing.
Which I love.
Yeah, me too. It is amazing how it sort of moves. You know, where the digital effects started out as sort of the cheap alternative. And then they became the standard, and now it's going back to the models and the puppets and the practical effects that is becoming the more avant-garde thing to do. It's, you know, and I think presumably the new Star Wars movie is going to be a big hit, whether it's any good or not. I'm sure it'll be a monster at the box office, and you know, so much is being made of the amount of practical effects being used in it. So, I mean, that could end up being another turning point where major studios will say, hey, you know what, maybe we have been sort of leaning too hard on the CGI, maybe some practical effects, and even if it is a fantasy film, maybe, you know, building sets and stuff, maybe that's like a good thing. You know?
I have faith in J.J. Abrams. I feel like this is going to be a really good movie, but I'll tell you what, I'm looking most forward to Episode 8 because I heard Rian Johnson is going to be directing it, and he's the guy who directed the best episode of Breaking Bad ever, Ozymandias. Has anyone seen that episode of Breaking Bad?
I should be ashamed of myself. I have never watched Breaking Bad, and I probably should.
Breaking Bad is so good that it's unfair for every other TV show ever made. I mean, seriously, like if you watch the whole thing, it's seamless. At least in my opinion, I could wax poetic masturbatorily about Breaking Bad.
Not on camera, please.
Yeah, wax my car instead, please.
Yes.
Stop waxing your poetry.
Yeah. Well, I think I've never seen I've never watched Breaking Bad either. I'm ashamed to admit, but I think one of the reasons, just as an outside observer, why so many of those like cable shows are becoming sort of the standard, and network shows are kind of playing catch up, is because I just think the distribution format makes so much more sense. I mean, a cable show, a season is maybe 10 episodes, 13 episodes, and a network series, it's 20-some episodes.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, like maybe 26.
Yeah.
I mean, 26 used to be the standard.
Yeah.
26 episodes. That's
Breaking
Breaking Bad always had 13 episodes in a season, 16 in its last, and The Walking Dead now does 16 episodes a season, and I think that's just a great way to do it. That's a really concise, not too short but not too long amount of episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff from HBO is 10 episodes. I know.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. What's the Empire? All of that stuff. Yeah. The Newsroom. I mean, first season was 10. Second season was 9. You know, and then the last season was 6, which was a damn shame.
Yeah. Well, and I remember the first time I watched the original British version of The Office, that those were 6-episode seasons. There were 2 6-episode seasons, and then a Christmas special that was 2 hours, and that was it. Like, that's the entirety of the British Office. And I remember when I first got it on DVD, I was like, "Is this it? Like, that's all there is? It's 12 episodes and a special, and that's it?" But that's when I look at it now, I think, yeah, but it's perfect. Would you rather have 12 perfect episodes, or would you rather have 120 episodes where maybe half of them are pretty good, but
12 perfect episodes?
Yeah, I mean,
and it also seems like they're not living and dying by here comes fall. Well, we got to get the new episodes out. We got to get the new season out. The seasons, or the series as they call them, sort of show up when they show up, and they present them, and they have as many as they have, and that's it.
And in the commentary for Red Dwarf, one of the directors said that where you make up a lot of money is with speed, and I'd imagine that applies over here.
I would think so.
Well, look what they did with Sherlock.
Yeah.
Sherlock is only 3 episodes a year, and
3 90-minute episodes.
Yeah, people are clamoring for it, so they've kind of set a new model. Let's have quality instead of all these other shows.
That's why.
Go ahead, Steve.
That's why it's I don't understand why they haven't done like the Captain Worf Star Trek series. I mean, do it as a 10-episode or a 12-episode thing, like on Netflix, or the Sci-Fi Channel would pick it up, I'm sure. Just make 10 episodes and just see what it's like. You know what I mean?
I have a theory. In First Contact, the first time you see Worf, he's preparing to kill himself and his crew. And he would have if the Enterprise hadn't arrived.
Yes, that's true. I actually, me and Jason were talking about this. I think it was after one of our recording sessions for the podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said, at this point, Michael Dorn would probably just do it like at his house on his webcam if they asked him to. I mean, it wouldn't even have to be that expensive of a show. He could just do it as like Worf's, Captain's logs.
Maybe they can get him a guest spot on Axanar. Which is coming up, I would think.
I'm interested to see that. I really the previews for that. I mean, they're really serious about it.
I love it. I mean, the production quality is 100% professional. The effects are beautiful. The track works. Yeah. That first scene that they did with the 2 Vulcans.
Yeah, that was great.
But I wanted to come back because you're talking about quality. Who here likes and/or followed at all Moonlighting?
I remember it a little bit.
I did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I loved it, but apparently Glenn Gordon Caron was so dedicated to the idea of just having everything absolutely just so that I think they were lucky to produce 15 episodes in a season.
Well,
if that.
50 episodes in a season?
15.
15.
Oh, okay. I said 50 episodes in a season. I was like, what?
What?
Lauren has not overheated. I am not losing my mind.
Who has the patience for that?
Network TV is definitely not the form for a perfectionist like that. I mean, that's the one thing I think I would not enjoy if I were. I mean, especially if you're in like the production end of it. I guess as a writer, there's different kinds of pressure, but if you're actually a director, producer, crew, whatever, I mean, the deadlines are crazy, and because it is like you're producing as the episodes are airing, you have to do 20 to 25 episodes a year. I mean, there's not that much room to get creative. It's like, okay, let's just get what we need to get so that we can put an episode together that makes sense, and if we have any time left over at the end of the day, I might try this really cool shot that I had in mind.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm actually kind of hoping to maybe try my hand at like a screenwriting class.
Yeah. And
because I was also thinking that I would love to write for some TV shows also. I mean, I like movies, but I feel like I've brought this up with you in a couple you had to ask questions before, Steve. But I just think that, and of course it depends on what you're going for, but I think TV shows are just better for long form storytelling.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Well, certainly if you can get a serial, something going on where there can actually be continuity from one episode to the next episode. I mean, I still think of Hill Street Blues as being where they really actually started that. Never mind the large format, the large cast drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the first 2 seasons of Hill Street, and I love them because you have that continuity, you have that sense of verisimilitude, and it's not, it doesn't feel like it's over dramatized, and I like that the most of all.
Yeah, well, and Hill Street was sort of the progenitor of that genre of sort of somewhat realistic cop shows that, you know, like NYPD Blue and Homicide kind of took that over in the 90s. Those were always and Law and Order, the original Law and Order, I would say as well. I mean, those were always some of my favorite shows.
Funny thing, Steven Bochco was doing most of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, continuity really is important, though. You know, like it's just like if a TV show, if episodes feel kind of like disjointed, it can really kind of ruin it. Like I'm in the middle of Lost right now. I'm trying to binge watch a bunch of TV shows so I can be more knowledgeable about TV shows. And like Lost, so far it's a good show, but it's a lot of it is intentionally ambiguous, and I think sometimes kind of detrimentally so. I feel like the writers that they're so far they've made like a lot of mysteries that they're not really capitalizing on. So
and I don't know. There's a lot of I've always had friends that always point out the continuity errors and the plot holes in movies, but I have a kind of brain that just fills them in.
Yeah. I generally don't notice them unless it's a bad movie. I mean, the way I figure it is, I think pretty much any movie, if you look at it and go through it with a fine-tooth comb after the fact, you can find plot holes or you can find motivations that you can't explain. You might, I mean, even a great film, you can be like, well, yeah, but why would they do that? You know, if they don't do that, then the story can't move forward. So why would they do that? But if the movie is good enough to pull you along while you're watching it, I don't really care. Like my favorite example of that is the movie The Fugitive, which when I watch it, I think is great. Pulls me along. It's a great action movie. I love it every time I watch it. But when you go back and you think about it, it's like, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. Why would they both? What are the odds that, you know, Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones would both be at the prison at the exact same time to visit the same prisoner? Like, that doesn't make sense. What are the odds of that?
You know, there's actually a TV trope for that phenomenon called fridge logic.
Yeah.
Called what?
Fridge logic.
Fridge?
Yeah.
As a refrigerator?
Yeah.
Well, the idea is that you're watching something and you're not picking up on the little inconsistencies and the problems with it until you get up to go get a drink from the fridge. And all of a sudden you come and think, oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like, if it's a good enough movie or TV show, like, I don't really care. But if it's my theory is that if whatever it is isn't entertaining enough to make me care about what it wants me to care about, then I'll start noticing all the other little things, and then they'll become much more prominent. I think that's why I can't get over, you know, the plot holes and the inconsistencies and the narrative missteps of Man of Steel, but I don't care at all about the ones in Superman Returns. Even though Superman Returns probably has just as many, it's just that they don't bother me at all because I like that movie.
The one thing I liked about The Fugitive was that at his core, David Kimball's a doctor, and he can't stop being a doctor just because something's going on. I mean, he sees a situation where he knows he can intervene. He intervenes even though there's an opportunity that he's going to compromise himself. The thing with Man of Steel was it was just violence for its own sake, and just, I mean, it was violence porn.
Yeah.
It was farce even. Like remember the line when Zod fucking says there's only one way that can end Kal-El, either you die or I do.
Yeah.
Duh. I mean, it's obviously a line intended for the unseen audience. Like, hey guys, remember what's happening, right? Remember the stakes, huh?
Right, exactly.
That's the kind of writing I expect out of George Lucas, for crying out loud. I mean,
and he says.
Yeah,
then Kal-El shouts false dilemma and just grabs his crotch and
yeah. Exactly. Why not? No, I made a joke. I made a joke on Facebook last week after I watched the first episode of Supergirl, where I said, you know, the Superman in the prologue of this episode who is basically just a plot device to explain who Supergirl is more heroic than Superman and Man of Steel, because even though we only see him like in backlit shadow, and literally all he does is find Supergirl's crashed ship and then take her to her adoptive parents, at least he's helping somebody. At least he's doing something good.
You know, and I almost wonder if
Supergirl wasn't from Krypton, was she?
She was.
Oh, okay.
Well, there are different versions. The version that they're going with in the show is based. It seems like it's based mostly on the classic Silver Age version, which is that she's Superman's cousin from Krypton, who was sent after him to look after him. It's like one of the most obvious retcons in the history of comic books. Where like Superman, for the first 20 years, basically Superman's history was, he was the last survivor of Krypton. His parents launched him on a rocket ship, and he's the only survivor of the doomed planet. And then they said, no, actually he had a cousin, and they had another ship, and she got launched too. We just forgot to mention. And a dog. You're right, a dog.
One of the things I really didn't like about Man of Steel was if Zod really is trying to harvest a planet, why not just go to freaking Mars or some planet closer to Krypton? I mean, there must have been hundreds of them throughout the universe.
Go to the Oort cloud. There's plenty of materials out there.
He has a machine that can terraform planets.
And if, like you said in your video review about it, if for thousands of people in Metropolis, it made almost no difference that Superman was there.
Yeah.
I kind of can't believe that the writers didn't catch that, incompetent though they may have been.
Well, that's the thing, and I mean there are explanations for that in the story, and that's where you kind of get hung up when I argue with people who like that movie. They say like, well, Superman, he flew to the other side to destroy the other side of the engine. Yeah, I understand, but why would you write a Superman story where the big battle at the end has Superman flying away from the people he could be saving, to the other side of the world? It just doesn't make any sense.
The engine itself was just a plot device, an excuse to show action. That's all it was.
Yeah.
There was
no dubstep.
And the codex,
dubstep. Yeah.
whatever the hell the codex was, it was it's like this mystical thing they just added in to try to make it to. I don't know.
It's actually a great example that somebody could use during a writing class as a lesson in complexity does not equal sophistication. You can throw all kinds of complications into a plot. You can load it up with a bunch of stuff that makes it hard to follow or complicated or whatever. Doesn't make it sophisticated. Doesn't make it deep. It just makes it cluttered. It just makes it busy.
Well, there's also that principle that you only want the audience to have to try to believe one incredible thing at a time.
Yeah.
The second you start adding incredible things, you're going to lose the audience. You're going to lose the suspension of disbelief. The whole 9 yards is going to go out the window.
Yeah. When your premise involves a guy from another planet who can fly and bullets bounce off of him, you kind of want to just go with that. I don't know if you want to have like alien
Superman
invasions.
himself is established as a superhero. I mean, at least he's got history behind him, so we don't have to worry too much about. I mean, as much as how many times have they told the backstory, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, starting to add the engine, the codex, this, that. I mean, it really starts getting top heavy.
Yeah, most of the stuff that they add is stuff that doesn't need to be there, and even if you want to include it, it's all basically backstory. I mean that's the main reason why I object to anytime anybody tells a Superman story that pays a huge amount of attention to Krypton. It just, unless it's really really good, it kind of loses me, because to me Krypton is all backstory. Like to me that stuff has already happened. And that's and the only reason it's there is to explain why the dude can fly.
And I get it.
Yeah, I mean, and in the first Christopher Reeve movie, it's there because they wanted Marlon Brando to be in the movie. I mean, that's it. That's why the first half hour of that movie is on Krypton, because they're like, well, Brando's playing his dad. We got to have Brando in it.
It's also a good reason to show the titles floating through space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they paid Brando $5 million back in 1979 to do it. Which back then was a nice chunk of change.
Wow.
And now they're talking about who was it? Will Smith, who won't be in the sequel to ID4 because he wanted $50 million for 2 films. Well, are you ready for that? So he's out of that.
That's crazy.
I'm not looking forward to Concussion with the new movie with Will Smith in it. He's playing a guy. He plays the scientist who discovered concussions and gave the NFL a bunch of trouble.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And in the trailer, you can see him do this thing where he's like, "Just tell the truth. Tell the truth." It looks like he's trying to go for. It looks like he's trying too hard to go for artsy. Hey, Academy, huh?
Yeah. Haven't won an Oscar. I'm just saying. I'm a huge star. Come on.
I mean, I don't dislike him. I think he's a good actor. I'm just saying this seems a little. I don't know if preachy is the right word, but it just seems kind of like.
Has there ever been a movie about the that guy who discovered that leaded gasoline was poisoning the environment, and then the gas companies?
It was mentioned in Cosmos. That was a brilliant episode of that.
Oh, that's where I saw it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they did that was one of my favorite parts about that new Cosmos series was they basically did the same thing that the original series did, but it was almost entirely all new stories. I mean, I really loved like finding the little examples of, milestones in science and bringing them to life like that. That was really cool.
Do they make season 2 yet?
No. I'm not. I would imagine they're going to. I've heard, rumblings about it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it deserves.
What floored me about that was just the story of how lead has become so ridiculously pernicious in our ecosphere. I mean, that floored me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was very interesting to what lengths the people with a vested interest in continuing to sell leaded gasolines, what lengths they went into, and you compare that to things that are possibly there.
I mentioned this too. One thing I have to recommend to everybody here is find one way or the other, and read Merchants of Doubt by Oreskes. And I mentioned that, and that you had to ask business. And but don't read it on a full stomach. Really, seriously, don't, because you will just don't have anything breakable around you, because you will break stuff. It
pisses you off.
Yeah, that and the one I'm reading right now, which is the Kevin Cruz piece, "In God We Trust: How Corporate America Invented Christian America." That one. I mean, I don't know which one pisses me off more, because basically it's the reaction of corporate America to FDR's New Deal, and they co-opt the religious establishment, and this guy by the name of Feifeld and Billy Graham, of course, in the effort to bring people back to God, and therefore bring people back to the whole idea of free enterprise and corporate America, and zippity-doo-dah, and the key word, of course, is freedom under God.
And zippity-doo-dah.
You betcha.
Well, listen, we got about 15 minutes left, and we have plenty else to talk about, but before we get too far into something else, I know, Shadow, I said to you before we went on the air, you have kind of a personal situation that you wanted to talk about. Do you want to discuss that for a couple minutes, and maybe we can give people a website address that they can go to?
All right, thanks, Steve. Pretty much what's going on in my life recently is that I was a taxi driver for a couple of years and doing some other stuff, but started getting some debilitating headaches that caused me to lose my job, and so I've been out of work for a while. I've gone to the doctors and talked to them, and with all the symptoms, they say I may have a brain tumor, but we won't know until further tests are done whether or not it actually is. But right now it's caused great amounts of financial problems to us, and everywhere we've turned to talk to, people have been like, well, go to your church will help you. Well, I'm an outspoken atheist, and I don't believe in being fake and trying to pretend to be all religious just so I can get a church to help me out. So what I've done is my wife actually has made a GoFundMe page for atheists who want to be able to help us out with rent, and we're hoping to be able to get a Winnebago be able to move into after we can get out of this situation. That way we have some place to live while working through these health issues and stuff like that, where we're not going to have to worry about a lot of rent and a lot of overhead bills and stuff to pay. Yeah. And there is a website for it. I linked it over on the side. I don't know if you want to
I put it here on my I put it here in my lower third. You can kind of see it. It's GoFundMe.com/rent-and-a-used-Winnie for anybody watching who wants to give Shadow a hand. It's definitely a worthy cause, because I know, Shadow, you've been a Patreon supporter of mine for a while, and you've always been a friend to me and a good dude. So anybody watching who wants to help out, that's how you can help Shadow out of this difficult situation. It's GoFundMe.com/rent-and-a-used-Winnie.
I'll write it down.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man.
I'm sorry to hear about your struggles. I hope you get better.
Yeah, it's, sometimes shit happens.
Life, right?
Yeah, so, anybody who can help him out, would be awesome. So what did everybody do for Halloween?
I worked. And then I went home and told myself I was going to watch a scary movie, but then I discovered that it was no longer Halloween. I just said, screw it. I shaved, and yeah. I was going to watch 28 Days Later for like the millionth time, because that's a movie I could never get sick of watching.
I love that movie.
Such a beautiful movie, especially the scene where they're done shopping, they drive past that field, and it's intentionally made it look like a Picasso painting.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
One of my favorite horror movies. I just
love it. Yeah. I have it on Blu-ray, so one-upped. Steve.
Totally, because I don't even. This will shock maybe somebody watching. I haven't even gotten a Blu-ray player yet, so I don't have. I do have a couple Blu-rays, but they're like the Blu-ray DVD combo. So, when I do get a Blu-ray player at some point, I'll be able to watch Star Trek Into Darkness in Blu-ray as well as in DVD. But
it's a worthy investment.
Yeah, it is. I like Star Trek Into Darkness.
Is that a Patreon level for you, Steve?
Yeah, but I should get a Blu-ray player. I could probably get one now. I just haven't. It's just a matter of. I don't really want one.
If you're going to get one that you're not spending $39.95 for it, and it's going to break 6 months later.
Yeah, no, certainly.
The one I'm looking to get eventually is the Oppo, which is like a little over $600, I'll admit, but it's probably the last Blu-ray I'll ever have to get.
Cool.
Oh yeah. And it's supposed to have a really good front end on it. I actually have my best friend, who he and I have been exploring stereo and high-end audio and video for the last almost 40 years. Have looked at that, and it makes a really, really good looking picture.
Cool.
And he's got I think like a 45-inch screen that he's got in his, and I've got a 60 downstairs, which really looks very good with the Panasonic. With the Oppo, I expect it should look just absolutely knock your teeth out.
I've always been a big fan of Sony myself. I always thought Sony products were just kind of the best for your money.
I started out with a Sony, and it was extraordinarily good. The problem is it was the first, and because it was the first, it was very slow loading.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, literally, if you side by the Sony to the Panasonic that I have right now, I mean, I pop in the same disc in both units, and the Panasonic is loaded 30 seconds later, and 2 minutes later the Sony's still loading.
Wow.
But again, keep in mind, this is something that I bought back in 2008. I mean, it was the first Sony Blu-ray player.
Isn't it incredible, by the way? You just reminded me, Lauren. Isn't it amazing how long loading times used to be for pretty much everything? I mean, there are still long loading times for certain things, but I mean, like I remember, because I'm not much of a video gamer. I think, and in fact, the last video game console I ever owned was a PlayStation 2. And I by the time, and I gave it away because I never played it, and I was just like, here, you want it? You can have it. I mean, it was cool while I had it. When I was into it, I was really into it. But then once I lost interest, it was like, oh, okay, you can take it. But 10, 15 years ago, loading times for video games were insane, and now there are still loading screens for the newer games, but not nearly as bad as it used to be. And the games themselves now are so much bigger and more complicated, and so much more graphic heavy, even than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Never mind when I was a kid, when it was just all 8-bit and 16-bit shit.
No, I feel sorry for you guys. We loaded it off a cassette tape.
Yes, I remember I had a Commodore 64
Oh,
where
right.
you had to type shit before you got to play the game. You couldn't just pop it in and it would automatically play it for you. You had to actually type load, comma, quotation mark.
I used to
I
have
still
an
have a
Nintendo
love
64.
of DOS adventure games like Space Quest, and you do have
Oh,
to
I
type.
mean,
Did anyone love the Nintendo 64? I loved the Nintendo 64.
we went back to old school and played a game called Commander Keen. And if you've never seen that, that's one of the first original PC side-scrollers. And it's fabulous. We went back and played it again because my son and I played it when he was 5. Loved it.
I wonder if any of that stuff is back at the Internet Archive. A couple of
Yes, it is.
well, yeah, we talked about that a couple of Hangouts ago, and that and Trinity and A Mind Forever Voyaging, the old Infocom games, which I love dearly, but the problem is most of them didn't make it back, and none of them will run on a 64-bit system.
And I once heard a tale that Sierra Online, the makers of some really popular adventure games like Space Quest and King's Quest and such.
King's Quest, I remember that, yes.
They used to, or I heard a tale, I don't know if it's true, that they used to take the coders up to a retreat with it was like in the mountains, and they would get them anything like drugs, hookers, whatever, just so they would produce code.
Lovely.
The seedy underbelly of the video game industry back in the day. I remember,
now it's just energy drinks.
Yeah,
give them a case
exactly.
of Monster and say go.
Just give them some Red Bull and lock them in a room. We need this by Friday, everybody. Yeah, I remember I had my screenwriting teacher in college actually told me a story once, because before he came, he's from this area, and he went first to Hollywood and then overseas to sort of seek his fortune, and then came back to this area and to teach. And for a couple years in the 80s, he was a studio executive in Hollywood, and he said that one time, I forget what he was a producer or an executive producer in a couple of Chuck Norris movies for Canon, and really low budget, kind of off the mainstream type stuff. And he said one time there was a knock on his door, and he opened the door, and it was a FedEx package, and the FedEx package was just cocaine. Like somebody had just FedExed him some coke.
Ruh-roh!
Yeah.
Rain!
Whoa! What do we do, Shaggy?
And can you hear him? Can you hear me? This is the first time I've ever spoken on this thing.
We got you.
I don't want to interfere, but no. I was an air traffic controller for 25 years, and the last 17 I worked at Memphis. And FedEx is, of course, based in Memphis. It's a wonderful company and a wonderful airport. Yeah. That Delta has forsaken. We're not going to go into that, otherwise this will turn deeply dark. But anyway, every time, FedEx has a wonderful safety record in that they used to lose about one airplane a year, but their pilots would always get out, and it was fantastic. I mean, there was very rarely loss of life, if at all, in the big planes anyway. Now the little box haulers, we'll talk about that later, but almost every time a plane burned down with FedEx, there was boxes upon boxes of cash.
Wow.
And there was also a lot of drugs on those planes as well. But I always thought that was interesting, because now we saw that on the NTSB report. We could read that shit, and you guys could read it too if you get online or whatever and look up NTSB accident reports. But it was almost invariable that there would be millions of dollars of cash burned up, or remnants of what appeared to be cash, and a few some little herbs and stuff.
Wow.
When it absolutely positively has to get there overnight.
That's right.
Sounds like some cartel business.
Yeah.
I used to live and die with FedEx. I mean, they used to get me my parts if I had to have a board or something overnight. FedEx. It was FedEx, or I will admit we used UPS. And you want to talk about tragedies? We had the same thing happen to us with these guys down in Wilmington, and what was that outfit down there? God, it's a three
Wilmington,
initials.
Ohio?
Yeah, Wilmington, Ohio.
Is it
DHL?
DHL, that's it.
DHL, that's it.
Yeah.
But
You know, there are. I think a lot of businesses, I'm sure, rely on that. I mean, the thing I always, it's always telling what my frame of reference is. I always think of FedEx used to be kind of a shorthand in among wrestling fans, because wrestling companies they would either send wrestlers their bonuses through FedEx, or if they wanted to fire them, they would send them their termination notice through FedEx.
Oh, that's cold.
So when a wrestler received a FedEx package, it could either be something really good or really bad. And like my favorite story is Kevin Nash has told a story on interviews a couple of times where it was back in the mid '90s when they first were starting to figure out how much more money the promoters were making than they were making, even though they were the people that were selling the tickets. And so he had a big argument. Nash had a big argument with Vince McMahon because he found out that he had made I think he had made like $15,000 less for a big payday than another person on the show that had been at about the same level as him. And he was like, you know, what's the deal? Where's my money? And Vince was like, oh, it's just a payroll error. We'll fix that. And then Nash gets off the phone with Vince and calls his wife, and he says, hey, tomorrow morning there's going to be a FedEx on the front porch with $15,000 in it. Just pick it up and take it to the bank, okay?
Steve, I have to ask. I mean,
Yes.
You probably know far more about this than I do, and I quit, really following wrestling for a while.
Yeah.
But is McMahon the ass that he really seems to be? Because he sure sells that image. The interview he did with, I think it was HBO or somebody. I forgot who.
With Bob
where he completely disavows, his responsibility for, some of the less fortunate things. I mean,
I do think, the character he played on TV on the wrestling show in the '90s was an exaggeration, but
the genetic jackhammer, remember that?
Yes, the grapefruits. Yeah, that was all an exaggeration. But I do think that there are things about the real guy that kind of sneak out here and there that make me think, yeah, he probably is kind of a dick in real life. Like he did an interview a couple months ago where he was talking about, back in the glory days in the 80s and 90s when they would basically set the storylines for the company at his house. You'd have a big meeting where all the different wrestlers and agents and bookers would come at his house, and they would figure out what they were going to do for their show for the next 6 months or whatever. And one of Vince's favorite things to do was to unsuspectingly sneak up behind somebody and shove them into his swimming pool. And he just thought this was the funniest thing in the world. And that tells me something about him. It's like the funniest thing. He's like, oh, it was hilarious. We would all laugh. Like, that's not really a cool thing to do, though, to just come up behind somebody and shove them into a pool. That's kind of a bullying, shitty thing to do.
It's not just a bullying; it's juvenile.
It's very juvenile.
And maybe, that's what we're looking at behind the facade.
Yeah,
my friend is teaching me about wrestling, and I think my favorite so far is he's hot, he's spicy, he tastes great, Curry Man.
Curry Man, yeah. Yeah, who is a great worker. Christopher Daniels is an amazing wrestler. He never actually got to work for WWE, but he worked on the independents and in Japan and for a couple of smaller promotions in the U.S. He's a great wrestler. Yeah, he was Curry Man. That Curry Man was hilarious. He actually had curry on his head.
Yeah. Anyway, what's it called when a bunch of wrestlers stack up on the on one of the posts and then they tumble and fall everywhere?
Oh, it's probably it's a suplex. It's when one guy's on top and then another guy kind of grabs onto him and then somebody else.
I think this was a TNA thing. There was 8 wrestlers involved. They were all grappling each other and then they just shattered on the ring floor. It was a tower of something.
Oh yeah, that was there's a couple of gimmick matches that they've done where the whole thing is basically let's see who gets hurt. I hate those matches, honestly. Some of them turn out to be entertaining matches, but it usually is like, hey, let's see who gets hurt.
It looked like they were using each other like gym equipment.
Yeah, it's not.
Yes, and I believe you might be talking about those brothers. Remember that? Now, I'm a novice wrestling fan. I was a wrestling fan for a brief period of time, and you can tell I'm a female, so I whatever. Remember Mick Foley?
Yeah.
Remember that era?
Yeah.
Those brothers that were the big tumblers, like young man was talking about.
The Hardys. Is it the Hardys?
They would stand up on each other's shoulders and everything, and they would do ridiculously dangerous tumbling. Whatever happened to them? Are they still in it?
I think though, yeah. If you mean the Hardys, they're still in it. Yeah. Matt, I think, is pretty close to retirement, if not officially retired, and Jeff, who was the more daring of the two, is probably also pretty close as well. I mean, but yeah.
They were destroying their bodies every night, I thought. It was just ridiculous.
It's a shame because, I mean, one of my favorite wrestling managers, Jim Cornette, says that it's, 30 years ago, most the fans thought it was real, and most of the time the wrestlers weren't really getting hurt. Now, today, everybody knows that it's fake, and the wrestlers are getting hurt more than ever.
Oh, they're brutalized.
So it's, it's like anyway, I don't want to get started on a wrestling rant because nobody can talk negative shit about wrestling more than a wrestling fan, and it'll just go on forever. But,
I live in Memphis, so this is the home of the King.
Oh, absolutely.
There you go.
The former site of the Mid-South Coliseum.
The Mid-South Coliseum's still standing. They haven't torn it down yet.
They don't still run shows there though, do they?
No, it's been shuttered for a while.
Yeah, that's a shame. That was one of the places when I was a kid. That was one of those places that I always wished I could go, like that, and in Dallas, the Sportatorium, which isn't there anymore, and a couple of other sort of local regional arenas around the country that were known as like just great wrestling hotbeds. But the Mid-South was always one of my one of those places like, I wish I could go see a show there,
Well, it's still a beautiful building, and they haven't decided to tear it down. They can't bring themselves to do it, and they just need to revamp it. They just need to redo it.
Yeah. Well, we have reached the end of our hour once again, my friends. So I'm going to wrap this baby up. You guys watching at home, if you enjoyed this conversation and you want to maybe take part in it next month, everybody can watch, but only Patreon patrons get the join link to hang out with me once a month in this situation for an hour. So if you like what I do on YouTube and you can afford it and it's something maybe you think is worth it, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and you can become a patron of this YouTube channel, and I would really appreciate it if you did. It would really help me out. It would help me to make more videos of the kinds that I already make and maybe make them a little better at some point, which would be nice, I think, for everybody. And to you guys in the room with me, my Patreon patrons, and to all of you patrons who aren't in the room but are watching this, thank you guys. Thank you all so much. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. It makes what I do possible. It makes what I do so rewarding, not just to know that you guys appreciate it enough to reach into your pockets, but it's financially helpful as well. So I really, thanks to all you guys here in the room with me for joining me and for helping me out. I really appreciate it.
Glad to do it, Steve.
Yeah, I'm glad to talk to you.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite things to do every month. I always look forward to it. And we're going to have to do this again at some point later this month because this was supposed to be the October one, but I had to reschedule it because I was doing something last week that I couldn't get out of. So maybe in another 3 weeks. I don't know if the Sunday after Thanksgiving would be good, but maybe the Sunday before Thanksgiving. I'm not sure.
Well, we'll just be moving very slow because we'll all be very full of turkey.
Exactly. I'm still full from Thursday. I'm sorry. So we'll figure something out. But so we'll be back to do this again at some point later in November. So there you go. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you guys for joining me here, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.